Imagine an empire so rich that it could buy entire kingdoms, fund endless wars, and pour gold and silver into Europe like a flood. An empire so vast that the sun never set on its territories. You might think of Britain or America, but no, in the 16th century, the world's largest empire was Spain. Here's the paradox. The richest empire in history bankrupted itself. Not once, but 4 times in just 50 years. How does that even happen? How does unimaginable wealth turn into crippling poverty? And more importantly, could the same mistake be repeating today? In the early 1500s, Spain stumbled into what looked like an infinite jackpot. The conquest of Mexico and Peru opened up treasure troves that no European kingdom could even imagine. Gold and silver poured across the Atlantic in fleets so massive that people believed Spain had tapped into an endless fountain of wealth. Between 1500 and 1650, Spain imported more silver than the rest of Europe had mined in 1,000 years. The city of Potosí in Peru became legendary. Its mountain was nicknamed the Mountain That Eats Men because so many lives were lost mining its silver. To Europeans, Spain looked unstoppable. But buried inside that river of silver was a poison, a lesson every empire, including modern ones, must learn. Spain's empire stretched across Europe, the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Mexico City and Lima were bustling capitals with universities and printing presses, while England's Jamestown was still a swamp struggling to survive. Spanish galleons carried bullion to Manila, trading silver for Chinese silk and porcelain. For the first time, the world was tied together in a truly global economy, and Spain sat at the center. And yet, that very centrality became Spain's weakness. Because what Spain had mistaken for wealth, endless treasure, was in fact an economic trap. Inflation began to skyrocket. Bread that once cost 1 coin now cost 4. Ordinary Spaniards grew poorer even as their empire sat on mountains of silver. Economists call this the price revolution, the first great wave of global inflation, caused by too much silver chasing too few goods. The irony? The more silver Spain brought in, the poorer its people felt. Spain faced another problem: what it did with its fortune. Instead of building industries, investing in innovation, or strengthening its tax system, Spain spent recklessly. It poured money into imports. Italian merchants, Dutch traders, and German craftsmen sold luxuries to Spain, draining silver out as quickly as it arrived. Worse, the Spanish monarchy burned vast sums on war. The Habsburg kings saw themselves as defenders of Catholicism after the Protestant Reformation, and that mission carried an astronomical price tag. Silver from the Americas bankrolled wars against the Ottoman Turks, funded armies in the Dutch Revolt, and paid for the colossal Spanish Armada of 1588, an invasion force meant to crush Protestant England. When that armada failed, the financial aftershock nearly broke Spain's credit system. And here's the cruel twist. Spain wasn't just spending the treasure it had. It was borrowing against treasure that hadn't yet arrived. German and Genoese bankers loaned money secured by future silver fleets. If a shipment was delayed, captured by pirates, or sunk in a storm, Spain defaulted. And default it did. 4 times in the 16th century alone: 1557, 1575, 1596, and 1607. Imagine the richest empire on earth declaring bankruptcy every 2 decades. Spain's empire looked powerful on maps. Vast colonies, glittering cathedrals, palaces filled with treasure. But beneath the surface it was hollow. Inflation had eaten away prosperity. Debt had shackled the crown to foreign bankers. Industries at home had withered. And then came the pirates. England and the Netherlands turned piracy into state policy. Francis Drake circled the globe plundering Spanish ships. Dutch privateer Piet Hein captured an entire Spanish treasure fleet in 1628 worth 11 million guilders, enough to crash Spain's finances again. Each lost fleet wasn't just treasure lost. It was an economic earthquake, collapsing Spain's fragile credit system. Rivals reinvested stolen silver into navies, banks, and trade companies. Spain's lifeblood became its Achilles heel. By the mid-1600s, Spain was still vast, but it was living on borrowed time. Could Spain have avoided collapse? Possibly. It could have reinvested silver into domestic industries, built stronger institutions, or spread wealth more evenly. Instead, it doubled down on debt and war. Each new fleet bought just enough time to pay last month's creditors. Each new war drained coffers further. Spain measured wealth in treasure. Its rivals measured wealth in systems. That difference proved fatal. By the 1700s, the once mighty empire was a fading giant. This isn't just a story about the past. The patterns are eerily familiar. Spain's flood of silver mirrors today's flood of cheap money from central banks. Just like Spaniards watched bread prices soar while silver poured in, modern savers watch inflation erode their wages, even as governments promise, the economy is strong. Spain mortgaged its future against treasure fleets. Today, nations mortgage their futures against debt markets and financial bubbles. Spain's treasure fleets were too big to fail. Today, we have banks and corporations that carry the same fragile label. Spain thought treasure meant security. In reality, it created fragility. That lesson matters more today than ever. So what can we learn? 3 lessons stand out. Treasure is not wealth. Money has no power unless it's tied to productivity. Spain learned that the hard way. Debt addiction destroys empires. Borrowing against the future only works until tomorrow doesn't come. Systems outlast riches. England and the Dutch built banking, trade, and industry. Spain burned silver on wars. One model collapses, the other compounds. History doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. Spain's empire collapsed not because it lacked treasure, but because it mistook treasure for wealth. The same trap waits for any society that floods its economy with money while hollowing out its foundations. The question isn't whether history will repeat. It's whether we'll recognize the warning in time. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe for more deep dives into the history that shapes our world today. History holds the answers, we just have to know where to look.